Emily Carter used to think that love could survive anything. She believed that as long as two people shared a home, a bed, and years of memories, nothing could truly break them. But lately, something inside her had started to crack, and she did not know how to stop it. The silence in her house in Portland, Oregon felt heavier every day. It followed her from room to room. It sat with her at the dinner table. It lay beside her in bed at night. Daniel had not always been distant. When they first met in Chicago 12 years ago, he had been warm and attentive. He would drive across the city just to bring her coffee on her lunch break. He used to look at her like she was the only person in the world. Back then, Emily never questioned her place in his life. Now she questioned everything. That evening, she stood in the kitchen stirring pasta that had already been cooked for too long. She did not even remember turning the stove on. Her mind was somewhere else. She heard the front door open and close. Daniel's footsteps were slow and tired. "I'm home," he called out. She forced a smile before he even stepped into the kitchen. "Dinner's almost ready," she said. He leaned down and kissed her cheek. It was quick, polite, like something done out of habit. "How was your day?" she asked. "Busy," he replied, already pulling out his phone. That was how most conversations ended now. One-word answers, short pauses, then silence. They sat across from each other at the small wooden table they had bought during their first year of marriage. Back then, they could not afford anything expensive, but they had laughed while building it together. Emily could still remember the way Daniel had pretended to read the instructions upside down just to make her laugh. Tonight, neither of them laughed. Daniel scrolled through his phone between bites. The screen lit up his face in the dim room. Emily watched him carefully. He did not look at her once. She tried to speak. "I was thinking maybe we could go away for a weekend. Just us." He did not look up. "Maybe work's crazy right now." "It's always crazy," she said quietly. He finally looked at her then, but not with softness, more with confusion. "You know how it is." She nodded, even though she did not know anymore. After dinner, Daniel went straight to the living room and turned on the television. Emily cleaned the plates alone. She washed them slowly, staring at her reflection in the dark kitchen window. She looked tired. Her hands and walked to the bathroom. She closed the door and leaned against it for a moment. Her chest felt tight. She turned on the light and faced the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked familiar but distant. Her brown hair framed her face softly. Her skin still held warmth. She was not old. She was not unattractive. So why? Did she feel unwanted? She touched her own cheek gently, as if trying to prove she was real. Footsteps stopped outside the bathroom door. "Emily." Daniel's voice was calm. "Yes." She answered quickly, wiping her eyes even though no tears had fallen yet. He opened the door slowly and stood there, watching her. He did not step. "Inside, are you okay?" he asked. That question felt like a knife. She could have told him everything in that moment. She could have said that she felt invisible, that she missed him even when he was sitting right in front of her, that she was scared he was drifting away. But fear stopped her. "I'm fine," she said. He studied her face. He could see the small tremble in her lips. He knew her well enough to sense something was wrong. "Emily, are you unhappy?" he asked softly. The word unhappy echoed in her mind. Was she? She thought about the nights she stayed awake long after he fell asleep. She thought about the way he no longer reached for her in the dark. She thought about how their conversations had become schedules and grocery lists instead of dreams and plans. She turned away from him, just tired. He did not move closer. He did not hold her. He just nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. That hurt more than if he had argued. He walked away, leaving the bathroom door open behind him. Emily stared at the empty doorway. She wanted him to fight for her feelings. She wanted him to ask again, to insist, to care enough to break through her silence. Instead, he returned to the television. That night, they went to bed without touching. The space between them felt wider than the mattress. Emily lay on her side, facing the wall. She listened to his breathing grow steady. He fell asleep quickly, like he always did. She did not. Her mind ran through every small change she had noticed over the past few months. The late nights at work, the new cologne, the way he smiled at his phone sometimes. She hated herself for thinking badly of him. Daniel had never given her a reason not to trust him, but doubt grows quietly, starts small, and then spreads. The next morning, Daniel woke early to shower before work. Emily stayed in bed, staring. At the ceiling, she heard the water running. She heard him humming softly, something he used to do when he was in a good mood. She finally got up and walked into the kitchen. The house felt cold. She wrapped her arms around herself and leaned against the counter. Then she heard it, a vibration. Daniel's phone was on the kitchen counter. It buzzed once, then again she froze. She had never gone through his phone before, not once in their entire marriage. She believed trust meant not needing to check. The phone buzzed again. The screen lit up. She did not mean to look. Her eyes just moved on their own. A name appeared. Claire. Her heart skipped hard against her ribs. She had never heard that name before. A message preview showed below it. Last night meant more than you know. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The words blurred for a second. Last night. Daniel had come home late the night before. He had said there was a team meeting that ran over. Her hands felt cold. She picked up the phone without thinking. The screen locked immediately. She stared at her own reflection in the dark glass. Her pulse raced in her ears. She could hear the shower still running. She placed the phone back exactly where it had been. She adjusted it slightly so it looked untouched. Her chest felt like it was collapsing inward. She did not cry. Not yet. She stood there, trying to breathe normally, trying to think clearly. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Claire was a coworker who was talking about a project. Okay, but the words did not sound professional. Last night meant more than you know. They sounded personal, intimate. The water in the bathroom stopped. Emily quickly poured herself a cup of coffee, even though her hands were shaking badly. She stared at the dark liquid as if it could give her answers. Daniel walked into the kitchen, towel around his neck, hair still damp. He looked relaxed. He stopped when he saw her face. Emily did not realize how pale she had become. "Are you okay?" he asked slowly. She looked at him, really looked at him. She searched his face for guilt, for panic, for anything, and she saw it. A flicker of fear passed through his eyes. He knew something had changed. She did not scream. She did not throw the coffee mug. She did not accuse him. She simply held his gaze. He glanced toward the counter where his phone rested, then back at her. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavy. Emily swallowed hard. In that moment, everything inside her shifted. The doubt was no longer quiet, was loud and clear. She felt something inside her break open. Not in anger, not in rage, but in deep, silent heartbreak. Daniel took a small step toward her. Emily, she wanted him to explain without being asked. She wanted him to confess if there was something to confess. She wanted him to fight for the truth. Instead, he waited. And she realized something painful. He was not just watching her anymore. He was watching to see how much she knew. Her fingers tightened around the coffee mug. She forced her voice to stay steady. "Who is Claire?" The question hung in the air like a storm about to explode. And in Daniel's eyes, she saw it clearly. Fear, for the first time since their marriage had begun. Emily felt the ground shift beneath her feet, and she knew that whatever came next would change everything. Emily's question hung in the kitchen like smoke. Daniel's eyes were wide, almost unreadable, and for the first time in months, he seemed smaller, human, vulnerable. He had never imagined her knowing. Not like this. Not this early. Not so. Painfully, she's someone from work, he said, his voice low, almost shaking. He avoided her gaze, staring instead at the floor. Emily did not move. She did not even blink. The words settled into her chest like stones. Work. That word offered no comfort, no excuse. It felt empty. And last night, she asked, calm, controlled. Her voice betrayed nothing, but her body tensed. Every nerve in her body felt electric. Her heart pounded, not in anger, but in raw anticipation. She needed to know the truth. Daniel's hesitation answered her before he spoke. He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed hard, and finally said, "Emily, it's not what you think." Emily tilted her head slightly, studying him. Not what she thinks. She had never imagined herself asking this question, and yet here she, walls standing with her chest exposed emotionally, waiting for him to fill in the blanks. The kitchen felt smaller, the walls pressing in. She could feel the shadows of her own heart stretching across the room. Daniel finally met her eyes. "Nothing happened," he said quickly, almost desperately. "I didn't touch her, I swear." Emily felt a flicker of relief. It's just a flicker. She closed her eyes for a second, inhaling deeply. Relief mingled with doubt, and the mixture made her dizzy. How many lies had she unknowingly swallowed over the past months, hidden in polite smiles, in silent dinners, in quiet nights? "Did you want to?" she asked. Her voice was soft, almost too soft. The words were dangerous. They cut through the tension, sharp and raw. Daniel froze, his jaw tightening. His face betrayed him. That pause said everything. Emily's shoulders sagged slightly. She let herself feel the fracture inside her. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, intimate, personal. It was a piece of her heart bending in two, and she allowed it to bend. Tears threatened, but she did not let them fall yet. She only let her body remember the ache it had been holding. Daniel ran a hand through his damp hair, his nervous habit returning. He looked older suddenly, weighed down by the truth, by his own guilt. He took a step closer, but not close enough to touch. Emily watched him carefully, measuring each inch. "I miss us," she whispered. She had not realized she would say it out loud until the words slipped through her lips. It was more than a statement. It was a confession, a plea, and a warning, all at once. "I miss when you looked at me like I was enough." Daniel's expression softened. The fear in his eyes melted into something heavier. Recognition, guilt. "I never stopped loving you," he admitted. His voice was low, but steady. Emily's gaze did not waver. She needed honesty, not comfort. She needed clarity, not excuses. "But you stopped choosing me," she replied. The words were simple, precise, and they landed in the space between them like a challenge. Daniel's throat worked silently, and he looked away for a second, ashamed. He had felt the distance growing, but he had ignored it. He had sought attention elsewhere, a small flicker of warmth he thought he had lost at home. But in seeing Emily break and feeling her quiet devastation, he realized how empty that warmth had been. For the first time in months, Daniel stepped closer. He did not speak. He did not reach out immediately. He only stood there, watching her, absorbing her presence, acknowledging the pain he had caused. Emily's breath caught. She wanted to pull back, to protect herself, but something in his eyes held her. Something that whispered, "I am here. I am seeing you." "I was stupid, Daniel," said finally. His voice cracked. "I felt distant from you, and instead of fixing it, I looked for comfort somewhere else. But it was empty. It wasn't real." Emily's gaze softened. Her chest still hurt, her heart still trembled, but honesty had a weight to it that deceit never could. She searched his eyes, looking for the spark that had drawn her to him years ago. She wanted to know if he truly meant it, if he truly saw the woman who had been standing quietly beside him breaking silently. "I need more than words," she said softly. It was a statement and a warning. Words could be empty. Actions were needed. Daniel nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. Then, without hesitation, he reached for her. He did not just step close. He held her face in his hands, gentle but steady, grounding her trembling. Emily froze at first. This was not a casual gesture. This was deliberate. It was a promise, a question, a confession. And slowly, she allowed herself to melt into it. Not because all the hurt had disappeared, but because he was finally present, finally accountable, finally fighting to repair the fracture. They stood there, the silence of the kitchen no longer oppressive but full of tension and possibility. The dishes remained in the sink, cold and forgotten. The day outside continued, but inside time felt suspended. For the first time in months, Emily felt seen, really seen. And that acknowledgement, fragile as it was, gave her a sense of hope. She had not felt in a long time. Trust would not return overnight. Healing would not happen instantly. But this moment, raw and unpolished, was the start. Emily realized something essential. Love is not about never breaking. Love is about who stays when the breaking happens. Who stands in the fragments and tries. To piece it back together, Daniel held her. Not in a rush, not in panic, not trying to fix everything in a single embrace. He held her as if her fragile state was the most precious thing in the world. And Emily let herself breathe again, letting the tension leave her body slowly. She felt her heartbeat calm. She felt the first stirrings of forgiveness. Not complete, not absolute, but enough to try again. The kitchen lights flickered overhead, casting soft shadows. Emily leaned into him, resting her forehead against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and true. It was not perfect, but it was real. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of something she had thought was gone. Hope. Hope that the silence could be replaced with words again, that the laughter could return, that the love that had been dormant could awaken. Emily and Daniel did not know what tomorrow would bring. They did not know if they could truly rebuild what had begun to crumble. But for now, in this quiet kitchen, they stood together, facing the truth, facing the heartbreak, facing each other. And sometimes that was enough. They had survived the storm of doubt and fear, and though the clouds had not yet cleared, a sliver of sunlight peeked through. It was fragile, delicate, but it was there. And both of them understood, surviving the fracture, seeing each other in the brokenness. And choosing to stay, that was the first step towards something real. Something lasting. And as Emily rested in Daniel's arms, she understood something crucial. Love does not require perfection. Love does not demand constant joy or endless certainty. Love, she realized, is about presence, about accountability, about holding someone even when they break. And in that presence, even at the edge of despair, there is a chance for a beginning again. Emily closed her eyes. Daniel whispered softly, almost to himself, "I want you. I want us." And for the first time in a long while, she believed him. The fractures were there, but they were not fatal. They could be mended. And in that fragile, trembling moment, Emily allowed herself to hope.